I don't know what they're doing in there. Yeah? Hello, 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 Monroe. Welcome to another Hudson River Poets. Thank you, George, Carney. A very interesting month we have. We have Valentine's and we have Black History. So we have a lot to read. It's going to be a good one today. Let me start with our preamble. Recognizing the power of the word as an instrument to promote and protect democracy, as well as our moral responsibility to promote and protect literacy and moral rectitude. In accordance and support of our most precious Constitution, we pledge that we, as citizens of these United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Swear to promote and protect what has been ordained and established as our Constitution for the United States of America, and as such, offer proof of our witness to the power of the word through the offerings of our work, in order to not only document for all conscious souls to experience, but leave an ongoing legacy for our actions or the actions of the future, and as such, recognize this moment as sacred for the next 7 generations. Valentine's was the 14th. Apparently there was a chap, Valentine, who ultimately had his head chopped off by, I believe it was Claudius II, because he had tried to convert him. There you go. But somehow it has become a hallmark moment. Not the cutting off of heads, obviously, but the business of, well, I guess there's that. That is true, but the business of promoting love through a card industry. And with that in mind, I'm going to start from barking at the moon and other conversations with the sun. I'll start with a love poem. Cotton candy clouds, a porcelain blue sky, lush green seas of cornfields, and my thoughts of you and I. The peace within the stillness and the gentle breezes blow. The wonder of the ages for each blade of grass I know. And what about tomorrow and the healing rains of spring? Tell me of my love for you and all that love can bring. For you are with me always as we lay upon the grass, or walk along the corn rows as the clouds above us pass. And what about tomorrow if the clouds begin to fade and all that's left is scalding sun, no longer we have shade? And our beloved cornfields and the dew upon the grass will dry, turn brown, and start to burn. Tout le monde en masse. I'll be there to shade you and cool your heated brow, as I have always been there back then, to be, and now. For like the healing rains of spring and the way grass kisses dew, always hold me close to thee, for I will see you through. That's from Barking at the Moon and Other Conversations with the Sun. Thank you, thank you. From Dog is My Co-Pilot. wrote this for my wife. Have I not always come to thee as if the morning sun, with sails so full from winds so stiff, so wrongs can be undone? A howling gale can blow against the soul till eyes can't see, but just as well it pushes at my back and you to me. How fresh this breeze does blow with all its promise yet to come. How sweet its breath, the rich bouquet of scented lands it's from. And what of all the stars when swept across the endless skies? And what of all the timeless souls so deep within your eyes? I cannot imagine life without you by my side. I cannot imagine breaking bonds because of pride. What I can imagine is two worlds becoming one and spend our lives entwined until our time is finally done. But is it ever over in this web of silken ties as we count upon the stars and cast our wishes towards the skies? For I too am a dreamer, sailing through this endless sea, solar tossed on heaven's wings, which then brought you to me. Too often I have viewed the world aware I was alone, an angry, self-afflicted hurt that I had to atone. I learned that all my world was only what I chose to be, the more I was aware to be aware that I was free. So now this seasoned sailor who has sailed celestial skies has found his lifetime journey has always been within your eyes. And as this dawn awakens with its light so warm and true, feel the winds against your back, for they brought me close to you. Thank you. That's from Dog as my co-pilot. Since this is Black History Month as well, I feel the power of that is quite significant within the balance of love. And I wish to bring up Ed Fisher, who is going to talk about many aspects of the history and reading prominent poets from the community towards that end. Ed Fisher, if you'd be so kind.
Well, I'm afraid these remarks are not going to be quite that grandiose. But let me just say, for too long now, a place at the table has not been afforded black poets. The contribution of African Americans to the arts in this country has not been given the respect it deserves. Just across the border to our north in Canada, the appreciation for jazz is strong and enduring. While here in the States, where jazz was born, interest has waned. There's a story about Dvorak, the great Czech musician and composer, and I defer to Hayden for the details of this history. Dvorak, okay. That he was invited to the United States near the end of the 19th century by a group of wealthy patrons of the arts in New York for the purpose of helping develop and adapt our own national folk music. At the time, a movement emphasizing the national character through folk songs, dances, and legends was sweeping over Europe, and Americans wanted to keep up with the fashion. After months of study, traveling around the country, Dvorak returned to New York to report, much to the chagrin of his patrons, who were all well-to-do and white, that America already had its own national music. It was called jazz. The segregation of our society, which, according to Jonathan Kozal, is worse today than it ever was back before the 1960s, has excluded many powerful voices in our society and impoverished us spiritually as a people. Even I, who have tried to educate myself in this respect, continue to be woefully ignorant of the many titanic talents like Paul Robeson that have enriched our way of life. And there are countless others who have truly made America great, not only in the arts, but in science, technology, medicine, history, politics, and every other field of endeavor. So in honor of Black History Month, I'm setting aside my own work and will instead read a short selection of a few very popular African American poets. There are many, many more, as well as a number of modern poets on the continent of Africa itself, like Leopold Senghor, one of the only poets to become head of state. We owe it to ourselves to become better acquainted with the possibilities these poets inspire. Imagine a poet, President of the United States. It could be worse, I guess. So I'm only going to I wasn't prepared to read more than this. I don't like to hog the show. So I'm only going to read two poems, one by Langston Hughes and the other by Maya Angelou. The first is a popular poem, and you may have heard it before. It's called "The Negro Speaks of Rivers." I've known rivers. I've known rivers ancient as the world and older than the flow of human blood in human veins. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. I bathed in the Euphrates when dawns were young. I built my hut near the Congo and it lulled me to sleep. I looked upon the Nile and raised the pyramids above it. I heard the singing of the Mississippi when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans, and I've seen its muddy bosom turn all golden in the sunset. I've known rivers, ancient, dusky rivers. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. And this is a poem, not her most famous one, but a poem by Maya Angelou called "These Yet to Be United States." Tremors of your network cause kings to disappear. Your open mouth in anger makes nations bow in fear. Your bombs can change the seasons, obliterate the spring. What more do you long for? Why are you suffering? You control the human lives in Rome and Timbuktu. Lonely nomads wandering owe Telstar to you. Seas shift at your bidding. Your mushrooms fill the sky. Why are you unhappy? Why do your children cry? They kneel alone in terror, with dread in every glance. Their nights are threatened daily by a grim inheritance. You dwell in whitened castles with deep and poisoned moats, and cannot hear the curses which fill your children's throats. Thank you.
I love Maya's work. Thank you, Ed. That was spot on. And James Baldwin, I mean, the lists go on and on and on. Billy Strayhorn, I mean, there wouldn't be a Duke without Billy Strayhorn. And Billy was gay as well, so Duke afforded him a tremendous luxury of protecting him in quiet and giving him financial gain, but the collaborations, the genius, and then you have the musical poetic license of free expression. We have the hubris today to pride ourselves with a quote-unquote new idiomatic speak and slam. But when you would hear Frank West and Frank Foster both playing their tenor saxes and the Basie band bouncing off each other, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh my God. And what's really sad, that archaeologically speaking, jazz now is referred to with reverence as a cultural specific, as opposed to the majesty and the genius and the infinite possibilities of itself as an art form, which transcends everything. Before I bring up our next reader, I just want to read a sestina that bounces off what Ed was very eloquently talking about these self-inflicted borders that we have. And it twists the metaphor on this, and you'll see what I'm talking about. A life that has no borders is like the wind for a ship without sails. Unrestrained, its blood to run without veins, spilling without intelligent design, never to know the comparative bonds. Freedom, inert, without comparison. Life without comparison is a universe without borders. No magnetic force field in all it bonds. A fleet of virgin minds that never sails. All relegated the same in design. No layering of history. No veins. Gold miners looking for veins, physicists looking for comparison, discovering proofs to our grand design. If random at a point, enlarged, has borders, it is this ship ever growing that sails, ever expanding, how it sheds its bonds. What about a word that bonds? From the heart, love, to pulse in our veins, freeing us to soar with galactic sails, without material comparison, spirit sharing light with all it borders, our heart in hand. This must be the design. If this does prove the design, and thus we free ourselves from all our bonds, this state of conscience will free our borders from our moods so deeply lodged in our veins. A light so bright beyond comparison, with wings outstretched beyond the greatest sails. This loving heart, how it sails, so full of love and yet of light design, weightless, yet strong with no comparison, based all on truth, the glue of life that bonds. And as this richness races through our veins, this we choose to be within our borders. So blossom sails, free thy bonds. This is the grand design within thy veins. Love's comparison within thy borders. Thank you. In the street between wormholes. The next fellow I wish to bring up was a spirit soul companion to Carolyn Falk, who is one of our witnesses. An amazing woman, an amazing human being of intelligence and grace and synergy. And Dennis is a dear friend of ours who is going to read a collection of poetry he wrote for her. Dennis, if you'd be so kind.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. Thank you, Hayden, for the beautiful words. This is called Do You Know What Love Is? The sun behind a wonderful love with tremendous fun. How I loved her. My heart on the run after a soul only you could have. I know our souls met before and will meet again. And God sent you to me to experience a love that will never die. I never knew what love was. I only thought I did. When I first saw you and your voice and heard your voice, it captured my heart. My life will never be the same again because I got a chance to love you for a short time. But was it really a lifetime? I could never explain to another how I felt about a beautiful woman like Caroline. Not one soul on God's green earth will ever understand. I'm the most grateful man. Thank you, Caroline, for showing me what life was all about. Rest in peace. I'll see you again someday. Maybe on a road that will never end. I'll look for you there. Thank you. This was a dream I had about 6 months ago, and it's called Who Was She? In a dream, she appeared, an angel. I held her close to me. Was it only for a moment? I couldn't tell. There she stood. Time didn't exist. Sitting here, my heart's filled with love. But when awake, I can't take her with me. Maybe someday I'll see what a love that was meant to be. I wonder what her name was and where was she from? Maybe from heaven way up above, who came to show me real love. If only dreams could be real, happiness no one could steal. Sitting here, I can still see her face. It had to be an angel in her place. I think my memory won't fade from dreams' desire. Like a cord connected to heaven, you can't sever real love. And I have one more short one. Thank you. This one's called July, a warm summer's night. Hold your breath, the night will steal it. Not a bird in sight. Violet scent fills the air. I'm returning from Florida Library, walking on Grand Street in Warwick, under globe-shaped green trees, with sweet smells of summer reminds me of a little boy with mom beside. Then a long view down Grand Street, Carolyn walking towards me. Hello, my love, where have you been? I was lost in the mist of moonlight. Come to me, my love, I'll hold you in sight, in my arms tight. Kiss you under that oak, entwined to each other's soul, never to unwind. Warm July night, no one's in sight. And we own Grand Street, with green tall trees waving at us. We walk to a very bright moonlight, beckoning us to enter, disappearing from Grand Street. I wake at 6 a.m. and tell myself this dream was so real, nothing could ever steal it from my heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. I'm going to read something that Dennis knows that I wrote for he and Carolyn. It's in loving memory of Carolyn Falk, and it was for Dennis Agostini. And I wrote it as if I were his voice. It's a sonnet. two souls holding hands in amber sunset, upon a raft that carries one to sea. A loyal friend at your side since we met, who now must say goodbye, and you to me. Your final breath I capture from your lips. My embrace you feel in this endless sleep. I draw into me with repeated sips. Thus, forever your memory I will keep. To hear you say, I love you one last time, as you float from this body I once knew. Such rapture we did share, beyond sublime. You are my dearest friend, my love is true. As we were, you and I as one are tied. Forever I will hold you deep inside. Of all those souls we've known and have had the pleasure of knowing and experiencing, the only thing that changes in passing are the additions of new memories. As long as we remember, they never leave. Now our next reader, another fabulous soul who we adore, takes us and spins us into storytelling. But it's such a fabulous innocence of storytelling. I'm just smiling from the other stories that she has read to us since memory. Jane Harries, if you'd grace us, thank you.
This story is entitled Mediation. Before we begin, I want to explain the process and set some ground rules so you'll know what to expect. Each of you will have a chance to say what happened, how that made you feel, and what you can do to end the problem. While one person is speaking, the listener is not to interrupt, ask questions, or ignore the speaker. Remember, you will each have a chance to speak. During your turn, you may not use bad language, make threats, bring up old problems, or lay blame. Focus on the current problem. Be specific of the time and place it occurred, and say how you felt. If you cannot follow these rules, I will stop the mediation and refer you to Mrs. Miller, who will handle this as a disciplinary issue. Janet's words were said from memory, paraphrasing the rules posted on the wall of her tiny guidance office. Now she was in a conference room at the end of a long table with two 11-year-old complainants facing each other, Dean on her right and Ariana on her left. At the head of the table sat the principal, Mrs. Miller. Janet was a guidance counselor for 30 years, only the last 5 under Mrs. Miller's supervision. Both women were in their 60s, but presented very different images. Mrs. Miller with coiffed red hair, tailored suit, and navy pumps. Janet with natural gray pageboy, casual slacks and top, and slip-on sneakers. Their working relationship was cordial. However, today Janet found the principal's presence unnerving. I've done this many times, so why is she here? This is a first. She'll be listening to the students' comments and watching for telltale signs of exaggeration, yet really observing me. The superintendent must have insisted, to see if I can handle this situation. If there are any mistakes, real or perceived, he'll want a scapegoat. I'll be blamed. These two unsuspecting students are not aware of the magnifying glass we are all under. Janet continued, you are to come up with your own solutions by mutual agreement. If you think the agreement is broken at any time, you can come back for additional mediation or go directly to Mrs. Miller. The principal usually received copies of plans to be prepared to handle student backsliding if necessary. She, too, was under pressure from the superintendent, Mr. Watson. He was in warrior mode about good public relations and feared any hint of unfair treatment would become a parent crusade against the school. Years ago, his predecessor had in-house training for interested staff to initiate a peer mediation program. Janet, with her Quaker background promoting alternatives to violence, took the training but was not selected to monitor the peer program. That honor went to a science teacher who needed a project for her administrative internship. The teacher took charge, eliminated the use of student helpers, and the program faded away when the internship was completed. By then, Mr. Watson was the superintendent. When he learned Janet was conducting mediations at school at student or teacher request, he mandated that she call parents for prior approval. She worried that with advance notice, parents might become defensive or impose their solutions. Since mediation was not officially part of her job description, she offered to withdraw the service altogether in lieu of jeopardizing what should be a student-led process. Mr. Watson did not give guidance counselors or mediation much credence, but after some face-saving deliberation, he permitted mediations to continue on the condition that she informed the parents after the conclusion. The notices could be done at the end of the school day via a phone message. Janet agreed, framing calls as a compliment on how a child handled a conflict on his or her own generally made parents proud of their child's problem-solving skills. Referrals from teachers trickled in, but it was Dean who first approached Janet to complain about Ariana's teasing. The two children had agreed separately to try mediation. Having the principal in the room was not a deal breaker. They just gave her a cursory glance. Dean, a brown-haired, medium-sized boy, was already a social pariah for not having athletic skills and not handling his parents' divorce well. He had a reputation for being moody. Ariana, on the other hand, was a gawky, fast-talking blonde who craved to be the center of attention. She had friends, yet remained on the fringe of sixth-grade cliques. She lived with two parents, but talked more about her possessions than about her family. Who wants to speak first? No one rushed to break the silence. After a few moments, Dean said, "She can go first." "He's always stalking me," Janet redirected. "You're talking to Dean now, so use the pronoun you." "You're following me in the hallways between classes. Then last Tuesday after school, I was home alone in my bedroom, and it felt like someone was watching me. I looked out the window, and I thought I saw you below. But when I went outside, no one was there, just footprints in the snow. It was creepy." "Describe when and how often you feel Dean is following you in school and why you think he was outside your house Tuesday." "Dean, say you. You aren't in my classes, but you always seem to be in the hall when I'm headed to the cafeteria or gym. And you know where you were. I know you were on the bus Tuesday because you talked to me before you got off near my house." Ariana turned back to Janet to say, "He lives 2 stops before mine." Flustered, Janet tried to second-guess Mrs. Miller's thoughts. Is this a criminal matter or a hoax? Don't complicate matters. She continued, "Describe in detail what you saw at your window and on the ground close up." "Well, it was hard to see from the window. Outside, the ground looked melted in one spot. There weren't any clear footprints." "Dean, it's your turn." Remember, you're talking directly to Ariana. "You're telling everybody that I'm some kind of pervert. I'm not following you. It's not my fault the whole 6th grade eats lunch at the same time, or have gym the same days, or ride the same bus. And on Tuesday, my mom took me to a dental appointment after I got home, so I was nowhere near your house. Because of you, Joey, Michael, and Jason are shoving me around and calling me stalker and rapist. You and your friends are making my life hell." Dean's contorted face was on the verge of tears. "Watch your language," cautioned Janet. "And we're not here to blame Joey, Michael, or Jason. We can focus on that problem later." Janet knew television and movies had expanded children's vocabulary, but not necessarily their understanding of certain words. Stalker and rapist were serious accusations. There was a fine line between clarification and criminal interrogation, so she proceeded slowly. "You should know that the words stalking and rape are powerful words. They refer to crimes that would involve the police." "Oh, I didn't mean that. You don't have to call the police," Ariana insisted. "Have you ever told Dean not to follow you or walk close to you?" No, he doesn't really do that, she admitted. Has he ever touched you or talked about touching you in a way that would make you uncomfortable? Looking straight at Dean, Ariana shouted, "No, and I never told anyone to hassle you." In that moment, both students exhaled like bursting dams. Ariana letting go of her fears of looking foolish, and Dean letting go of his blaming everyone. The audible sighs were sweet sounds to Janet, ones she had heard in other mediations. That sound was more important than any apology. Sometimes an apology was insincere or forgotten, but a sigh was spontaneous and honest. Once high emotions deflated, the success of reaching a compromise was greater than 50-50. You need to make a plan so the same problems don't happen again. You've identified 4 situations where you might come in contact with each other: lunchtime, gym class, the bus, and your neighborhood. We can't oversee what happens in your neighborhood, so I suggest you approach your parents for help there. But during school hours, what do you want to do about lunch, gym, and the bus? I have an idea, Ariana said. I always eat at a table with girls, and I'll walk to the cafeteria with Carmen. Dean added, I guess I can walk with Jimmy and see if we can sit together. He's always at the boys' table. But the gym won't be a problem because the class is so large. I'm in Mr. Murphy's group and Ariana's in Miss Gorman's. The groups don't mix. Do you see any problems with the PE class arrangements, Ariana? I could switch your schedules so your classes are on opposite days. No, leave it the way it is. Well, what about the bus? You both could set some guidelines about no eye contact or talking to each other, or the bus driver could change your seat assignments. Ariana was quick to respond. No, that won't be necessary. Do you want to be able to talk to each other? Janet asked. Yes, both students said simultaneously. Okay, I'll write down your agreement and make copies for you. You don't have to discuss this with other students, but be aware that some may still want to take sides or keep rumors going. How will you handle that? Oh, I'll just tell my friends that it's settled now, Ariana said. And people will just see that everything is cool between us, Dean added. Is there anything else you want to say before we finish here? Ariana and Dean looked at each other. Ariana spoke first. I'm sorry. Me too. Though surprised and pleased by the unsolicited apologies, Janet was still flooded with doubts. Will Mrs. Miller think I coached them ahead of time? Was the problem glossed over? Can I trust the process? Ariana and Dean read over the agreement and signed it. Then Janet wrapped up the session. After they returned to their classes, Mrs. Miller approached Janet to ask, What do you think? Janet's heart raced. What was that question asking? A summary of the situation, a prediction of how long the truce would last, an assessment for further measures? Janet went with her gut instinct. I think Dean has a little crush on Ariana and vice versa. What do you think? Mrs. Miller smiled. I do too. You handled that very well. I'll notify the parents. Keep up the good work. Janet exhaled, caught off guard by her own sigh. A holding breath underwater feeling disappeared. There was a wondrous release, a lightness, a sense of peace.
Thank you, Jane. God, if Congress could only work like that. Wouldn't that be great? You have C-SPAN watching and someone gives a speech and the camera's panning and you sing. It's not Elvis, but it could be. I'm trying to figure which was Miller, Mitch McConnell, or before I bring up our next reader, I want to do another love poem for Valentine's Day. This is a sestina. With the purity of love, an unencumbered heart I give to you, to soar upon the endless seas of time, with countless stars like garlands in your hair, and the sweetest scent of eternal spring as you float weightlessly on solar winds. How soft and fresh are these winds that hold us safe as one within our love. How sweet this dew that bathes this virgin spring. This kiss upon your soul I give to you, as my need to caress your fragrant hair grows stronger as we both are lost in time. How moves this sea as does time, riding the waves of astral dust and winds, tossing us entwined as does our hair, enraptured as we coincide our love. For you are more myself as I am you, this bursting forth of life that cries in spring. How does my heart shout this spring, forever now and in a distant time? For everything I am for you, that carried me so far wrapped in these winds. This siren song is sung about our love, so subtle as is light shine on your hair. Heaven's stardust in your hair, as does a meadow's morning mist in spring. Then the sun, a rainbow's arch of love. And such a moment we will freeze in time to carry with us suspended in these winds. For all there is to see is there in you. We and us and I and you, our skin, our eyes, our touch, our smell, our hair, this constant rolling ocean and these winds, ever-expanding bounty we call spring, this continuum that blesses us through time, this gift of life we share to be in love. You are rapture that is spring, a fine hair suspending our world in time, with winds to gently sway us within this love. Thank you. In the Street Between Wormholes. Our next reader, a very interesting humanoid, an extraordinary biped with delicious human faculty, sense of humor, and an ebullience of life that is so spot on. Just happened to walk off the street in a whim when he saw on the marquee, as he told us later, and he's now been a regular ever since. It gives me great pleasure to bring up Harvey Greenwald.
But I better be careful that I don't drop the whole job. Anyway, since I didn't know what I was going to read and barely got here at all today, based on circumstances which life give you, and Hayden has said, and no, my domestic bliss is in Brooklyn with the grandchildren. And my bliss has to do with other members of the family. Yes. Blind bliss, they call that. That's another poem. No, anyway, I must state that Valentine's Day means nothing to me and hasn't for years. And it won't mean anything after today either. So basically, I'm of a mind, and it started a long time ago since I've been a professional craftsman most of my life. And at shows I would see some exceptional objects, one-of-a-kind things that I look at, and I would get. And for my daughters and loved ones, I would put them on a shelf. I didn't know who was getting what. So Christmas time, I had fun picking out from that shelf the things that I loved and knew who would love them too. And now if I see something, it's not so much things, it's sometimes doing something more. But anyway, if I see something and I know it's so correct, I buy them then and give them as gifts, because every day has potential to be like a birthday. And, you know, we have a chronological date. Anyway, I will read you, since Hayden said love poems. Well, that also is a word that has several different meanings. I don't consider love a possession. And love, I can experience the love of a person I can't stand, because I understand they're going through something that I've seen manifest in my own life. And I go, we're on the same voyage. You know, all of a sudden I flash onto myself, and then it's kind of love of life in a human being or any living thing, which is a wonderful experience. I wish I could experience it more. Okay, now, when we met, I took your hand and we walked climbing the hill. Our past receded like the stone in the field, growing smaller, disappearing as the view grew larger. Catching our breath, I looked into your eyes and saw our entire future in this moment. I wrote that for my daughter asked me to write a poem when she was getting married. Okay, now let me fumble a little so everyone can be pleased with, no, we won't do this. Here's a poem I never read. I was waiting for the beginning of spring, but since this is, let's say, you'll decide for yourself what it is. It's called In the Light. In light of season, by a brook, two small rodents lay, while waterspouts upon the ocean knew the meaning of the day. Meek doe, standing, waiting, not long but a fawn, heard the heavy mantled king call upon his horn, the mild breeze blowing with the thunder of the sound. Reynard shall run another day, for none have seen the hound. Black-maned lord springs heavy in a jungle heat. All have heard the calling, none shall miss the feast. And as I lie upon this bed, light thoughts stir about. My fingers touch her flowing nape and blow the candle out. That's kind of a love poem and also a seasonal mating poem, quite obviously. But it took me years. That's written a very long time ago when I was writing mostly in rhyme and meter. I got to dig up some other stuff, because some of the other stuff was very romantic in that period. But it only happened, it was sometime this year when I was looking at that poem, and then I realized all this nature was doing everything in light. And then in my romantic thing, we hugged and put the candle out. In light of season's a good title for that. Anyway, this is called Winter Light. A lot of light happening here. Anyway, these are the closest ones that, well, you asked me and I got ready. I wasn't ready, I guess. I think I'm ready. For almost anything in this life at this point. The summer is the time to be a child. The endless days of play swimming through the hottest of them. No thought of school, the abandoned harness laid aside in this time of lushness. Young love and mating calls can disappear under the green blanket. Secrets kept, promises made, forever now, no melancholy of falling leaves. I saw you today on the road, cap pulled down over your ears, cheeks and nose red from the cold bite. Your children are grown and gone. Your husband left years ago. You live alone. In passing, you looked up, smiled and waved. The brightness was piercing, reflecting off the frozen whiteness. Love revealed in winter light. No fumbling. Thank you.
Oh, Harvey. You see what I mean? What a wonderful soul. God, who knows what's around the next corner? It's really something. Excuse me. You see, you had me so spellbound, I forgot to bring the right book. This is Between the Ears, Behind the Eyes, and From the Heart, another love poem. Within the fog of my exhaustion, I think of you, the depth of your passion, the soft, inviting touch of all your lips, which engulf me with such willingness flexed with wanting, drowning me in unfathomable wetness, so united we could not separate our smells. This memory, which I call home, is so strong, beckoning me with your siren song, while I sit out at sea, yearning to find your safe harbor once more. How I long to nestle along your warming shore. You were most generous. I kissed you with the passion of a wild man, deprived of such abundance for so long, but still aware of all that is possible. How I undid you, and how you allowed yourself to be undone. The spreading of your desire, and all the succulence it brought forth. I embraced your teeming shore as you sheltered me once more, surrounding me, securing me again within you. Through all the tranquility of time and space, there is my addiction just to see your face. I am lost in every place without you. Show me where to come. Once again, I wish to enter your luscious harbor, the receptiveness of your lips, and my need for the repeated sips of the elixir to heal my arid void within. Flood me with your warming spring, refreshing this thirsty being, your legend that I now must sing for all eternity. The other who makes me whole. As if we were but just one soul, a sea so still begins to roll, a tidal wave is rising, pushing me to your waiting arms. And as I slip into your port so deep I'll moor securely, you will hold me fast and safe, and dispel my fears and wanting. I will be at rest, finally at rest, once more a welcomed rest with you, whom I call home. Between the ears, behind the heart, and from the eyes. Our next reader is a dear friend of ours and humbles us in his presence. He is a witness as well as a demonstration, the fulcrum being either side of that clear glass that we look through, of ourselves and at himself, of so much life, so much incongruity, so much remarkable synergy and healing and love. One of the most remarkable lightness of beings that you will come across. It gives me great pleasure, Lou O'Neill.
Thank you, Aiden. My God. I don't know who he's talking about. After listening to your poem, Hayden, if I was a younger man, I would have had a hard time approaching the podium. However, due to my age, Harvey's beautiful statement of seasonable mating is now a goal of mine. I had two poems. Ironically, you heard one before, but I spilt an entire glass of V8 juice, bright red, all over that cynical or skeptical poem I have about the heart being a pump and a muscle, so I don't have that right now. And I did receive a phone call right as I was leaving from my loved one who's currently indisposed, so I had to take the call. I do have one here, though. It's called I Know Love Is, but I Don't Know What It Is. Love is probably the most heralded of human experiences. It has been a most difficult phenomenon for me to define it, describe it, and to acquire and or experience it. Does love come uninvited? So it seems. Can love be cultivated? Not if it is selfless. Is love pleasure, or is it something beyond? Timeless. If it is timeless, it's not pleasure. We all are self-centered and other-centered. Pleasure involves the self. Love is of the other. Although I must admit I enjoy the pleasures of a loving relationship. Can love be divided into divine and physical? Isn't the abstraction of the phenomenon of love indivisible? You know, a flower that has perfume is not concerned with who comes to smell or who turns its back on it. So is love. Love is not a memory, not a thing of the mind or the intellect. Can the ambitious person be available for love? Can one who is attached and dependent love? Can jealousy have anything to do with love? Must one not understand fear, greed, envy, and despair if one is to love? I forfeit so much love for comfort, security, chained to the bonds of my conditioning. Does not love imply freedom, not to do what I like? But when the mind's quiet and I am disinterested in self, I am free to be. When I am free of the self, then love appears and manifests. As one can't escape if they don't know they are in prison. Neither can those who are not awake, alive, and aware to examine themselves and life be available for love. Love most likely appears through the peeling away rather than the seeking. Love, mysterious love.
I did want to read a few haikus. Haikus being my psychobabble on a haiku. This is haikus on self-understanding. Self-understanding is my priority in life. How do I do it? Self-understanding is my priority in life. How do I do it? When I don't accept nor move away by escape, just stay with what is. When I don't accept nor move away by escape, just stay with what is. Acceptance will end the process of inquiry, and so does escape. Acceptance will end the process of inquiry, and so does escape. Just a sidebar, I'm not big on acceptance. It's a big part of our lives in the world I live in. But my contention is that if I don't judge, there's no need for acceptance. Double my energy. These are a few haikus about my core. This happened to me in a self-imposed trance, and I changed a few words to fit it into the 5-7-5. Be authentic, delight in my being and the being I am part of. Be authentic, delight in my being and the being I'm part of. That came to me in 1970. I had never used, spelled, or muttered the word authentic until that night in a trance. Where it came from, I have no idea. Mysterious dreams, proof of a chaotic mind. Are they luck or choice? Mysterious dreams, proof of a chaotic mind. Are they luck or choice? Love and inquiry, the essence of my being, smothered in ego. Love and inquiry, the essence of my being, smothered in ego. Do I peel it away, or by understanding it, will it dissolve? Do I peel it away, or by understanding it, will it dissolve? As I sit silent, a wisp of insight is seen. Inner delight emerged. As I sit silent, a wisp of insight is seen. Inner delight emerged. Perceive without thought. Observe, but no observer. It's rare, but available. Perceive without thought. Observe, but no observer. It's rare, but available. No thought, then no time. Look at what is the present. There cannot be fear. No thought, then no time. Look at what is the present. There cannot be fear. As part of my, I'll take advantage of the time here. Great injustice. Can't do it. One person can't do anything, but we all can do a little. I've narrowed it down. I've done a few haikus on 9/11. 9/11, will it end? The truth will set you free. Amen. No, prison, my friends. The guilty are free while the world wallows in misery. Are we blind lemmings? Can't we look at fact? 3 buildings fall, a demolition act. Aircraft crash, body parts. So many questions, yet 17 years. Yes, we forget. The criminal elite, you bet.
Thank you, Lou. It's always a pleasure and an honor. Well, Jack Kennedy, 9/11. Harry Truman formed the CIA, who kept the 4 letters from Ho Chi Minh from arriving at his desk, which meant really that Vietnam would have been our ally and we never had to go to war, subsequently killing 6 million people in Indochina. The sickness, the cancer. Breathe. Back to love. But before I do that, just responding to Lou, mind time, the time of mind, the mind of time, for time is only time when it moves, and mind is only mind when it is active. Examining our own organism, how we think and why. Reflecting the dynamics of our own genetic code, the unity of ourselves and the real world, as subjective as that may be perceived, for what is real, other than what we create it to be. Reflections of vibration, constant resonance, pulsing between our ears. I'm going to hit you with some love poems as we wrap up. Oh, that was from the sky above, we dogs below in the blink of a lifetime. This is from In the Street Between Wormholes. I'm a junkie for your love, needing a fix. The enraptured elixir of your endless spring, the scent, the taste, the smell, the lust embodied within your robust physicality. The nuzzle of you at the nape of my neck, arms around me, binding us so together, not letting go. Then letting go in order to make me crave your return. Passion dripping with each synaptic snapshot. Cruel torture living within fragmented memory to memory. Not knowing what is real, what is fantasy, whether I will ever see you again, and yet I see you always, this dance before me, spread open and inviting. This wine I drink, this nectar so sweet, so selflessly offered to my lips. Every portal opened for me to feast upon, a cornucopia of endless possibilities. Such aroma, this bonding glue between us, inseparable, timeless, though fleeting, until joined again, mutual, divine. How many vessels through creation have delivered us to consummate this primordial hunger, only to be satiated within our commonality? Our need to be cleaved, then rendered whole by the other, joined in spiritual embrace, shared only by us, bonding within this perpetual moment, this marriage, this unity, this static perfection, now and forever. These vapors rising, permeating every corner of my being, such distillation coalescing heart and soul, blades of grass bathing in the glory of dew, bending under the tease of spring, primeval, deep roots, firm, sated within the liquiescence, rich and moist, such humor to be sucked through the ardor of life, unfolding before us, as does a flower heliotropically splendiferous, the glory of life itself. The ticking of the clock, the space between, rhythm, syncopation juxtaposed, the uniform suspended between heartbeats, breathing within the spectrum of light, morphing colors, bending with nuance, solar winds carrying astral dust, pixelating all who come in contact. Communications, distant lives refreshed, ebullient with promise, rich with fulfilled wishes from futures past, waiting to give hope, the stuff that dreams are made. Rain, succulent droplets, pitter-patter, tap-tap, tapping, breaking perfect, anointing a parched psyche, quenching unrelenting thirst, life splattered, facing the mirror of my physical reality, looking deep into younger eyes. Such a rude awakening, this torrent pouring from my soul, perpetual rejuvenation, refusing to accept the dryness of aging, this outer package fleeting in spite of this inner youth who won't go away, who continually magnifies all that is possible. Must I deny this mirror? Reflections, whether in glass or your eyes, reminding me of time versus the static perfection. Vitality ageless, enduring, unending, immutable, always succulent, droplets, perfect, tap, tap, tapping, pitter-patter, splatter, unrelenting thirst, life, only to finally evaporate, to be no more before my eyes. Lips, soft, tender, vulnerable, yet willingly showing selfless desire, telegraphing unrestrained need. Then you speak, silence of which all unfolds, stillness profound, unmasking inner workings, true feelings, awesome darkness, never ending, of which sparks ignite, of which light emerges, of which consciousness unleashed is pure, lifeful, perfect. Lust, attracted, I turn towards the burn. Sensory need, unfathomable, unrelenting thirst, reaching for you. Oh, the heat. Such craving, merciless, remorseless, shameless, voracious hunger, this predatory beast, these unyielding needs, unquenchable, raging desire, solely for climax, regardless how fleeting, the self in self-absorbed glory. Transference, exchanging point of view, ourselves experiencing the other side of witness, coinciding sense memory, the lifeblood of our being to inevitably, indelibly render us as much the other, as much ourselves. Shadows, your light, gone, alone in the dark, seeing my own reflection, recollections reliant on synaptic memory, not the lush physical olfactory immersion, entwined, entangled, knotted, inseparable. Oh, just to smell you again, taste the odor of your essence. Withdrawal is hard, sideswiped by the emptiness, your wake spreading, as does the finality. A hole to fill with all my heart, not knowing just or how long or part, don't know how deep or how to start, but dig I must. Fragility and urban plight, no matter how or what to fight. I wish I may, I wish I might, but dig I must. This yearning so rewards to reap, to climb this hill that is so steep, no matter how restrained my feet, but dig I must. To look upon such luscious treats, rich succulence, a tempting feast, to conquer gold, the goal one meets. So dig I must. And when you come, how rich will be such wine to drink on bended knee, with eyes not shut, and you'll agree, for dig I must. It was your body, not your heart, so freely given from the start, and I savored every part. You led me to believe. The manner how you showed your grace, the bliss that shined upon your face, with eyes wide shut in every place. You led me to believe. Such wondrous rapture we did share, ourselves so open, all to bear, endless bounty everywhere. You led me to believe. But too soon your precious gift, no longer certain, set adrift what I thought began to shift. You led me to believe. The one thing that just wasn't there, a growing love to count on, share. Reticent, your heart, not there. You led me to believe. So, grateful for this sexy lunch. Very filling, I loved a bunch, but without your heart, I feel the crunch. You led me to believe. Thank you all. We are the Hudson. Oh my God. Here comes a quickie? You can't say that in love. Ed Fisher has a quickie. A classic lover.
It's not my work, but it's a nice love poem to end on. This could be the credo of poets. Sing we of love and idleness, naught else is worth the having. Though I have been in many a land, there is not else in living. And I would rather have my sweet than rose leaves die of grieving, than do high deeds in Hungary to pass all men's believing.
A pussy by any other name is just as sweet, but it's the organ between your ears that will raise this meat. It's amazing what we find on bathroom walls, within bathroom minds, within each other's bedroom. And we read them and we savor them. Though I must say my favorite couplet was in Providence. It was in Providence, Rhode Island. Nietzsche is peachy, but Sartre is Sumatra. With that, my dear friends, thank you for another session. We, the Hudson River Poets, you are more than welcome to join us. And seriously, do not be self-conscious. Come and read. Literacy is the power of democracy. We will turn this around. Thank you, George Carney. Thank you, Monroe, for your soft receiving hands to allow us this luxury to come into your living rooms. Happy Valentine's. Happy Black History Month. Peace.